you go. Okay, so I'm Meredith from the North Central Florida chapter of Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, and tonight we have Callie Dunn from AmFund who's joining us to talk about the DiSC assessment and how that works with communication styles, and definitely hope you are all able to take the test ahead of time. If not, still good information that you can take with you for a future test. So I'm going to turn it over to Callie.
Well, thank you, Meredith, and thank you guys for joining. I'm super excited to share this with you. By no means is this going to be like a super in-depth formal DiSC training, but more of an overview, and I put some fun twists on it, to some social media references and some current pop culture, so I think that always helps. But to get started, I do have a really quick video to show you guys, so just excuse my computer for one moment while I screen share with you. This is a really quick overview that I think is very funny and cute that talks about the DiSC styles and DiSC personality types. So just give me one moment. The way this works, Spectrum for internet. We'll try.
Okay, so we've established that everyone is different, right? But here's the cool thing. They are predictably different. We all are. And because of that, we can actually predict how people will act or react in a given situation. Our world is made up of 4 types of people. There's dominant, or the D style, influencing, which is the I style, steady, or the S style, and compliant, the C style. Generally speaking, those are the personality types of the people you interact with every day. And I'll let you in on a little secret. You're one of them. Let's take a look. We've all been waiting on an elevator and seen the girl who presses the button, steps back and looks at the button again, then presses it again, and again and again. Yeah, that's a D style. She has places to go and people to see. She's probably always in a hurry, so then she'll tap and hold the button, frustrated, thinking she can actually make it move faster. D styles are dominant, direct, and results-driven people who want to control their environment and then do something to make a difference in their world. Now, let's take a look at the I style. She is Talky Talkerton. Once the doors open to the elevator, she's the one who turns around and starts talking to nobody in particular about pretty much anything. She's an influencer. When the elevator stops, she's the jokester who quips, "Third floor, lingerie, enjoy your day." Now, not all I styles are cheesy people who tell mom jokes all the time, but you see what I mean. I's draw energy from people and love to engage. Now, here comes little Miss C style. She's the quiet one. She's kind of off to the side, standing in the front of the elevator, looking at the plaque that reads, "Maximum weight, 2,500 pounds. She's calculating body weight. Uh-oh. If one more person gets on, we're gonna go down. She's on a schedule, but she's allowed herself plenty of time. She's compliant, she knows the rules, obeys the rules, and wants everyone else to do the same. Look at her. How cute. Enter the S personality. She's stable, steady, and keenly aware of her surroundings. She wants everyone to be happy, and she thinks it's her job to make it so. She's the one holding the elevator door open to make sure everyone who wants to get on can do so at their leisure. Meanwhile, Miss D's in the back huffing and puffing about needing to get to her meeting. The S will even take the stairs if there's not enough room for Miss I, who keeps everyone waiting while she finishes her mocha latte frappuccino thing. Harmony and steadiness are a big deal to the S. As a leader, it's important to know these DiSC styles so you can begin to better understand the people around you. It's also important to understand that we are all a blend of these styles. Sure, we can adapt those blends based on our environment or when a specific situation calls for one style over the other. But more often than not, we've all got to accept our DISC and learn to live, work, and play and accept these basic truths. So there you have it. We're all different, but we are predictably different.
Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. Were you able to hear it okay? Oh,
Yep.
awesome. Okay. So that was a cute little overview of the DISC styles. And I don't want you all to think this is like a personality assessment or this is like exactly how you are all the time. It's more of looking at your traits and your roles at different points in time. So if you were to take this DISC assessment a month ago and you take it again in a year and you have a different job, or maybe you become a parent and you have different stressors in your life, your DISC style will change. So just take this all with a grain of salt. It's more of an overview. And we all have a little bit of each style in us. So I don't think anybody is like 100% one of these. We have a little mix. And if you look at your assessment, hopefully you'll see that as well. But now I'll pull up my PowerPoint. Let me share my screen with you guys. Okay. So again, this is just reviewing the DISC styles, which if you watched the video, you saw the dominant style with the elevator pressing, the influencer who wouldn't stop talking, the steady style who makes sure everybody has room on the elevator and will be there to hold the door open for them, and the C style, which focuses on compliance and order, and she was the one calculating the weight capacity on the elevator. So I think we all might identify a little bit with each of these or know someone in our life who identifies with each of these, especially if you've ever ridden an elevator. So that's why I love that example. But we'll go through some more of this. So what does DISC stand for exactly? So you'll see this is a circle, right? But I look at it more of an XY chart. So you could actually graph yourself on this chart, which I think is really cool. So you have the D in quadrant 1, I in quadrant 2, and then you have the S and C. So you can actually find yourself if you're more people-oriented or task-oriented, are you more outgoing or more reserved, and plot yourself on a DISC chart, which I think is a really great tool, especially if you're working within a team of people or a staff and you're onboarding new employees or new team members. It's just really helpful to get to know each other. It's all about communicating effectively and knowing how you prefer to communicate as well as how your teammates and those you interact with prefer to communicate. So really what this is about is getting your message across. So if you're talking to a D who is direct, competitive, and results driven, but you drone on and on and on, give them fluffy details that they don't want, do you think you're going to get your message across? Probably not. And so what's going to happen is you're going to end up becoming more frustrated because they're not understanding what you're trying to say. When if you look at their DISC style and you know, okay, I need to give them facts and figures, I need to be brief, I need to be like a bullet point email, you'll be able to communicate a lot more effectively and hopefully a lot less stressfully. So it's a great tool to use. You can see the motivators for each different style. So the I is typically friendly, optimistic, enthusiastic. The S is very steady and sincere and patient, which are great attributes to have. The C's are really accurate and cautious. So if you think of a typical accountant or someone in an analytical role, they're usually a very high C. The typical CEO, someone who has to make high-level decisions daily, weekly, whatever it may be, they're typically more of a D. So you can kind of identify with those styles within your role at work and then also at home, which is really interesting. So if you think about it, and at work, you have to make decisions all day, and you really don't like making decisions. At home, you're probably not going to want to make decisions. And so if you're a really high decision maker, like a high D at work, you might be more of an S or an I at home and not feel the pressure to make those decisions. So it's really just about finding where you're most comfortable and what is the least stressful way to communicate and getting yourself in that area so that you can communicate effectively at home, at work, with whoever it may be. Great tool to use. So I hope that's pretty clear. Some other personality type assessments. Myers-Briggs a little bit more focuses on your personality type than necessarily your traits and attributes in a certain role. But if you have taken your Myers-Briggs assessment, you can kind of see where you're going to end up on the DISC scale. So if you're a high I in Myers-Briggs and you have those ISTPs, ISFJ, you probably have more S or C. Then when you get down into the E's, you have a little bit more D. So it's just fun. The Myers-Briggs is the 16 personality types. They go through like the executive, the idealist, the scientist. So it's another fun assessment to take if you want to learn more about yourself or your team. So I definitely recommend that one as well. It just, it's a great communication tool either way you use it. So common examples, I kind of tried to break this down into some popular movies. I am not a huge Harry Potter fan, so if I got some of these wrong, definitely correct me. But I look at, these DiSC examples and these certain characters. So The Hangover, you have Phil, who's more of a D. You have Alan, who's an I. He's enthusiastic. He accidentally roofies everyone. He's a little bit too enthusiastic. Doug, your S, and Stu, your C. If you remember, Stu was the doctor. So he was your more like, let's follow the rules. Oh, we've got to get back in time for the wedding. He was your little bit more analytical one. So interesting to look at it and the Hangover example and not like a corporate job example, but I think that helps a little bit. So Seinfeld, you have Jerry, who's your D, Kramer, who I actually think I messed these up. So I think Kramer was more of your I and Elaine a little bit of S. And then George was definitely your C. He's very analytical, if you know George. Shrek, again, Shrek would be your D. Donkey was your I. He's very enthusiastic all the time. Gingerbread Man, he was always like very reserved. There was a point he like lost a foot or an arm. I think Lord Farquaad might have bitten it off. So he was always more of your S. He was steady. And then Lord Farquaad wanted all of his rules all the time. So he had that C side, but also a little bit of D because he was very direct and was the ruler of a kingdom. So that would make sense. And then Harry Potter, I tried my best. So I put Harry as a D. Ron, I think, was always very like happy. So he's an I. Neville, I remember being kind of like reserved, and so I put him more as an S. And then Hermione, with all of her rules and spells, as a C. So I tried my best on that one. Have not seen all of the movies, so definitely do not think that one is perfect by any means. But they're just some kind of fun, pop culture examples. So just to break it down, super high level overview. If you look at this terminology, it makes a lot of sense with the different styles. So D's, do it now. That's what they're focused on. They want it done. They want it done now. If you're a DI on your DiSC assessment, you're about getting it done, but doing it together and having fun while you do it. So let's do it. I's typically are like cheerleaders. They get people engaged. They're good ambassadors. Like they get the crowd riled up. So if you have like a campaign or something, it's definitely great to get an I involved because they'll get everybody else involved. So again, I, let's do it happily. IS, let's do it together because again, S are those steady relators. They're always there. You can rely on them. You can count on them. They'll be there to help you do it together. They always focus on let's do it as agreed also because they are steady. So they don't want to waver too much. They want to do it as agreed upon. But if you need a little bit of flexibility because you need help, an S will be there. They're very dependable. If you move down into the SCs, they say, let's do it how it should be, because again, the Cs are very analytical and want to do things right. So Cs say, let's do it right. And DC is do it. So yeah, get it done right, and just get it done. So you can see again, the DCs are the more task oriented. They're focusing on accomplishing something, where the I's are a little bit more people oriented, and they don't so much care about accomplishing the task in a super quick manner as long as they can have more people involved in that camaraderie of accomplishing. So they look at it as kind of like an added bonus. So if any of you are The Office fans, I think The Office is a great mechanism for showing workplace dynamics. So besides DiSC, if you've ever studied like the parent, adult, child relationships and decision making, The Office is a great example. You can almost put any episode on and pick out, who's making the decision, who is in this child state of learning, and look at their different DiSC styles. So if you ever have to, show something to a team, there's probably always a meme or an example from The Office that you can use. So for DiSC, I'm going to use Dwight as my D example. One of my favorite quotes is when he says, "How would I describe myself? 3 words: hardworking, alpha male, jackhammer, merciless, insatiable." Obviously not 3 words. So you can tell, was he a C? Was he analyzing that? No, he was just saying it. He was a D. So he's driven by, his self-confidence, his forcefulness. He values authority. That's why he always refers to himself as assistant regional manager and not assistant manager. So he does value that authority. And I don't look at this as necessarily his downside, but it's something that does limit him. He may not be as sensitive as others, like Phyllis is always very sensitive on The Office, and he may be a little bit impatient, so sometimes he just makes rash decisions. So if you're working with a D, it's great to know the strengths and the weaknesses, because again, if you're working as a team, one person doesn't have to do it all. You might have a really strong D and another really strong S to complement the person. So it's all about knowing your strengths and weaknesses and where you're most comfortable and where your team's most comfortable. My next example would be Michael is very much a high I. The best quote to describe this would be, "Do I need to be liked? Absolutely not. I like to be liked. I enjoy being liked. I must be liked." But it's not like this compulsive need to be liked, like my need to be praised. That is such an I quote. I's feed off of praise, off of kudos, off of recognition, because again, they want to be those influencers, those ambassadors who get the team riled up and get people on board. So they are enthusiastic and optimistic, often way too talkative. I'm a very high I, so I can say that I'm very overly talkative, and I know that could be a strength or a weakness at any time. And so I's may be limited by their impulsiveness, and sometimes disorganization too, because again, they are more on the people-oriented side versus the task-oriented side. So people aren't always the most organized, and that's just something that an I has to know. But again, we all have a little bit of each style in us, so we may not have the disorganization side or the overly talkative side of the I. So everyone's a little bit different, but Michael Scott is a fantastic example of an I. I encourage you all to go back and watch an episode of The Office after this, and you'll definitely see what I'm talking about. Phyllis is my S example. She's steady, she's on the party planning committee, and she always wants everything to be done totally correct, and she's there to follow up on it. There was an episode where I think they asked her to get a cake, and instead of getting one cake, she gets like every single type of cake possible because she wants everyone to be happy, because she's an S. She's very, very steady. And S's also seem to take things a little literally. So another example of that is she goes, "I called every grocery store in Scranton and no one sells whole pigs." So Michael, I guess, assigned her to get a pig, and that is how she took it. But she was dedicated. She never stopped. After one told her no, she called every single grocery store because she's that steady. She's helpful. She's supportive. She values collaboration and stable environments. I will tell you, S's don't like a lot of change. C's don't either. So just things to know. They might avoid change. It might be a little indecisive. So it's great to have multiple team members with different styles and not everyone being one style, like all S's or all D's. And finally, my C example would be Angela. Earlier, I told you all that a typical C or a typical accountant, someone who's very analytic, would be a C, and Angela is an accountant on The Office. And so one of the quotes to best describe her is when she's on the phone with a customer and she says, "Excuse me, well, I don't see how that's our fault. And I've already told you the official position of Dunder Mifflin is apologetic. So I don't know what you want from me." and then she hangs up. So instead of just saying, I'm sorry, she just says, the official position of Dunder Mifflin is apologetic. So you can see that she's a little bit more task-oriented than people-oriented. A people person would not have said that. A people person would have said, I am so sorry. I apologize for that. So you can see where her C side comes out. So again, she's very accurate. She knows the official stance of Dunder Mifflin, and she's very detail-oriented, but she might be a little overly critical and over-analytical. Which can also be bad personally, because you never want to be too hard on yourself. So sometimes C's need to know that you need to be a little bit lighter on yourself. Take everything with a grain of salt. Don't be so hard on yourself. So those are just some great examples from The Office. Great show, great tool for training. Highly recommend using it. So I hope you found those helpful. Go to my next slide. So I put this together really quick because we are in the virtual age right now. COVID, obviously, as if we weren't going virtual enough before that. Here we are on a Blue Jeans meeting. We've been on many Zoom meetings. We're all communicating via email. I think they said the average number of emails an executive receives a day is like 100 to 150 right now. So that's crazy. So here, if you aren't talking with someone, even camera to camera like this, or you're not talking face to face, it's harder to tell what their DiSC style is because we are so expressive as, human beings with our face. And that's kind of hard now with everyone wearing masks. You only can be expressive with your eyes. So this would help, if you're communicating virtually. So you pick up the phone and you call someone and you get their voicemail, and the voicemail says, you know what to do, and it beeps. That person is very likely a D. Did they give you a nice greeting? Did they say have a good day? Did they give you any, callback numbers like a C would? No, they were short, sweet, that's that. So they are likely a D. And they'll communicate pretty similarly via email. If you ever get those emails that are short, sweet, to the point, sometimes they don't even use exclamation. Or you get those emails where they put the first sentence in the subject line and then start the email with the second sentence, and you're really confused, where are you going? They're a D. They didn't even take the time to put a subject in the email. They just put the first sentence into the subject. Likely you're communicating with a D. So just know to be more direct, short and sweet, probably bullet point emails, probably a D. An I, you call their voicemail, they're so cheery, they talk with a super high-pitched voice because when you get more excited, you talk in a high-pitched voice. They likely are using exclamation points in their voice, in their email. I do this, I type emails, and I will end up writing all exclamation points. And I'm like, I can't end every sentence with an exclamation point. Then you go back and delete some and put periods in so you don't seem like a crazy person. I do that. Likely you're communicating with an I. So I know we've all gotten those emails. We've probably sent those emails. You're communicating with an I, heads up. S would be apologetic in a voicemail typically because you missed them and they were really looking forward to connecting with you because S's are steady. S's are reliable. S's want to answer every single phone call and it drives them crazy when they miss one. You are likely the person who will keep your phone on all the time, answer emails at 2 a.m. because you want people to rely on you and you want to be reliable. So again, like I said with the C earlier, sometimes you need to give yourself a break if you're one of those people. Again, the example of the voicemail, they're letting you know how sorry they are. They're telling you they check their messages regularly. They're even giving you someone else to speak to because they think you're calling with such an emergency. And then they apologize again. That is a total S because they're steady and reliable. And emails, if talking about a project or something, they typically will not use I and me pronouns. They'll use we and us because, again, they want to accomplish it together as a group, as a collective. So you'll read back through some of your emails after this and realize that you're probably talking with an S when they're using those we, us, and super inclusive pronouns, which are awesome. And then as a C, they're very analytical again, so their voicemail is pretty to the point. They usually repeat themselves. So I know, we all call people and leave our phone number. And then sometimes people repeat it again. You're usually a C. You want to make sure they heard everything, even though it's a voicemail, and they can go back and replay it, but you're going to leave your number twice because you're a C and you're analytical and you want to make sure you have all the facts and that you've given all the facts. So if you're emailing with a C, you likely will have no grammatical errors in that email. They may contain numbered points. So I know we've all gotten those emails. Hopefully it's only a list of like 4 points, but I know we've gotten them with like 9. So that's likely a C, and they're usually very formal. The C's and the S's tend to be more formal, and the D's and the I's tend to be a little more informal since they're more impulsive. C's and S's will take their time and double check things and think things over, whereas D's and I's are more time motivated and want to just get things done super quick and get them done while they're energetic and enthusiastic. So hopefully that helped you realize, who you're talking with in a virtual setting. I know we're all talking virtually now, so it's pretty clear it's going to be one of these. In a perfect world, we would all be right smack dab in the middle of that chart I showed you earlier, with the D, the I, the S, and the C. In a perfect world, we would be an equal combination of all of those. And, we're learning every day as you work with different team members and you realize how people like to communicate. You'll adapt your style to communicate, which is so great. So again, like I said at the beginning of this, your DiSC style can change. So if you look back at the assessment that you took via the Tony Robbins website, hopefully you'll kind of agree with it. If you don't and you feel like you need to retake it, you're probably a C. So just letting you know, because you're being a little bit too analytical of yourself. But I hope this was a great tool. Again, you can use Myers-Briggs with this. There's all types of different indicators out there. There's colors, the 16 personalities. So they're all just different tools. So figure out, which one is best for you and your team. You might like DiSC, you might like Myers-Briggs. Explore what's out there, but either way, figure out how to communicate effectively because it's super important. So this is my email. If anybody has any additional questions or follow-up and wants to, talk more in depth about your DiSC assessment, I'm happy to. I'm in no means like a, professional DiSC trainer anymore, maybe a couple careers ago, but I am very passionate about it and I love communication. It's so important. We're never going to be able to stop communicating, especially now where we have devices on us all the time. So it's only going to become even more important from here on out. So I hope that you found this really helpful and that you'll use it not only as a tool for you, but for hopefully your teams or your volunteers or committees or whatever it may be, because it's just all about communicating effectively. So that is my slideshow, and I know Meredith is recording this, and I can make this available as well. Meredith, I can send you the slide deck as well, so you have that. But I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't really have a question, but you probably weren't able to see the chat because you were sharing your screen. But
oh, I wasn't. I'm so sorry.
We have a bunch of eyes here tonight. And everybody really liked the examples you gave, and at least personally, the first one you showed that was like the list of like how you do things, I was like, oh no, I'm not an SI after all. I'm definitely like an SD. And then when you went to like all the other ones, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. So definitely like the in-depth and the examples and the quotes really helped a lot to be like, oh, I get it. Okay, yep, that's me.
Oh, good. Well, great. Hopefully now, you're relating with different characters of The Hangover and Harry Potter.
I have a question. Do you think hi, this is Julia. Do you think because a lot of us are eyes is a reason why we all showed up tonight? Is that a reflection of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, eyes value communication. You value, being heard. And so you definitely want to learn to communicate better and network. Obviously, eyes tend to be more networkers. So if we were in person, we'd probably be at in-person networking events, shaking hands, giving hugs, but now we're all virtual. And I also think it says a lot about your roles too within, cystic fibrosis in different areas, especially working in development. Anytime you have to work with volunteers, you probably have to have more enthusiastic, high eyes up there.
And I have a follow-up question for you. So when we are thinking about working with some of our volunteers and donors and staff members who maybe aren't eyes, and so much of the virtual world is now these virtual events, do you have any thoughts on getting them to either come to something like this or other ways to engage them?
So again, I would look at, especially if you're talking about emails, I would look at the emails you're sending too. Sometimes we need to be a little bit more concise and to the point as eyes. We do feel the need to elaborate and give all these exciting details. But sometimes with like the Zoom burnout and things of that nature now, it's almost better to keep them asking for more. So to give less information almost, to tease a little bit, you might have better response. I don't know. I would look at your emails. I know I do that sometimes. I'll like type too much and I'm like, why am I putting that in an email? That's so unnecessary. So sometimes I just have to think about that.
Cooper or Chelsea, you guys want to share what you are?
I am not an I. So mine is D, which I would say is probably accurate.
That makes sense for what you do, though, too.
Yeah.
And Cooper, you said you're a D also?
No, I am an ISC.
Oh, you're everything but D.
Yeah. Probably a bigger emphasis on C than mostly everything else, though.
But it's also what your field is. I mean, Chelsea with her turbines and Cooper with all the legal, that makes a lot of sense with like the procedure and being a lawyer.
Yeah, lots of emails. Lots of no grammatical error emails.
What have you found to be like a better leader of people? Have they done that sort of analysis?
The perfect leader would have all 4 attributes because, again, you want to be able to work with your team. The typical CEOs that I find just from the trainings I've done and I've worked with, like being able to see their DiSC results, do have a lot more CD just because they have to be the decision makers. And sometimes, employees, you hire people because they're really good in a certain role, but then when you get up to these higher level leaders, you kind of have to be good at all the roles. You kind of have to know, what everyone does. So I've seen a lot more of the analytical side, but a perfect leader would be smack dab in the middle.
I have another question. Sorry, I have so many questions for you. So I know I've taken the intrinsic test. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, where it's the colors, where it's like orange, green, gold, and blue, I think are the colors. If you're familiar with that, what's the difference between this DiSC and intrinsic?
I'm not super familiar with it. My mom works for HCA Healthcare, and she's actually an intrinsic trainer. So I know a little bit, but I'll definitely pull something that relates to both, and I can email it to Meredith, and she can send it to you for sure.
Cool. Yeah, I would definitely be curious because I understand the difference between Myers-Briggs and this, but these two seem very similar. Yeah.
I would agree those two more so than Myers-Briggs. Again, Myers-Briggs is more like personality, where this is more like traits in your role and strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, if no one has any more questions, unless Julia, you got a few more in your pocket.
I have something. I was cracking up when you said that eyes use a lot of exclamation points, because sometimes I think that I am way overdoing it on the exclamation points. Like, people probably think I am crazy, but exclamation points are the best.
Right? It's like,
now you know who to spend them to, Morgan.
Yep. Exactly. Colette.
love the exclamation points.
Yeah, so I think that's it. I can definitely send out the recording to everybody if you want it and the slideshow so you can share with people the different quotes that represent you. But Callie, this was great. I think everyone really enjoyed it. You had really awesome examples, so thank you so much.
Oh, great. Well, thank you all, and thank you for tuning in with me on your Tuesday night through dinner and everything. I appreciate it. So I look forward to the next time we can all get together, a happy hour or something. But thank you guys so much.
Yeah, and our next event, it's going to be October 13th, Nathan? No, 15th?
17th or 16th. I have to look at the calendar.
We will send an email recap, and we are going to have an event in October, somewhere around the 15th. So we hope that you'll join us, and thanks again.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.